everyone, welcome to a new video on the channel. Today we are setting up the month of November in my reading journal. I'm really excited to share this theme with you all. It is my last fantasy theme of 2023. I cannot believe I'm saying that. If you're new here, I alternate between fantasy books and romance books each month, and this month ended up being a fantasy, and it's one of my absolute favorites from when I very first started reading again. This is one that is very dear to my heart by an author that I absolutely adore. You can already see on the screen what the book is if you're looking, and it is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I think I did this theme last year, but not with the collage-based aspect like I started doing this year. I know I did Once Upon a Broken Heart, my favorite series by this author, for September last year, and I think that was what started all these little collages that I've been doing for the whole year. But I haven't done Caraval that way. All the same, whether I did it or not, I haven't actually checked in my book to make sure, but I feel like I have. I wanted to revisit it and give it a proper glitz and glamour moment. This is such a decadent book for me, and I really wanted to make sure that I represented that in the theme. And I think I did a pretty good job actually. I ended up with a lot more photos than I actually needed, but it worked out in my favor because it meant that I could go with a lot more visual aspects on the page. And I also found this wonderful font on Design Bundles. I will link as much as I can below for whatever I've used in this setup, and I will definitely link the font. It's called 𝓬𝓱𝓮𝓻, I think, and it was for free on Design Bundles. You just need to have an account there, and that's a free thing as well. I use it for my Cricut stuff. And it's just a really lovely font, and it also comes with extras that you can find in the character map and change things out, which I did with a couple of them. But I printed this out on some vintage decorative paper that I had and made my headers that way. It did print out crooked, so a couple of the headers are a little bit harder to get even, but this is a journal, not a masterpiece, so I'm not too worried about it. I did, in fact, count every single dot as I put them down on this next page that you're seeing here to ensure that my calendar view had 30 spots, not 31, not anything else. If you watched my setup for September, you'll know exactly why I was being very careful with how many I had. I ended up really butchering that calendar, so I've really worked hard not to make that mistake again. I did make a mistake of putting the header in the wrong place, however, so I just ripped it up. The double-sided tape that I used to set this theme up actually is very strong. As you can see, it ripped the page, but it's not too bad. It's not really that noticeable, and it's not going to bother me over time. Just setting up the other headers on the page now and getting all the other decorative elements in place. I used a acrylograph for the line work, and I'm not happy with how that works out, especially later in the theme, or on the book, sorry. I will talk about that when we get there, but I also used one of those Temu paint markers. I absolutely love those. They're the dot marker end and a brush tip on the other end. I can't find them to link. I tried when I was talking about them the first time around, and they unfortunately sold out because they're that good. I absolutely love these. I prefer these over my acrylographs, which are like 3 times the price. But I'm just going to finish off this calendar now, and this page is basically done, aside from sticking in a key. I'm really happy with how my calendar has worked out this year. I do think I'm going to try doing something a little different next year. I've got a friend who has a different way of using her calendar, and it's kind of inspired me to give it a go. Obviously on black paper it's not as feasible, so I'm going to have a little bit of a play around on some white paper and see how I like it, and if it works out for me then I will continue to do it that way. But I think for now I'm just going to keep the calendar the same. I mean, we're into the second to last month of 2023. I don't need to change anything drastically at this point. Moving on to another page for the book, and this time round I'm doing yet another readathon. It is not a Monopoly board. I have had my fill of those, but there is actually going to be 2 readathons that I take part of in November. I will go into a bit more detail about them in my TBR. video where I talk about what I'm going to do for each month, but I set up both readathons a little segment on these pages with the decorative elements in the middle. I haven't actually put anything in other than the headers and these pictures, just because I don't actually know what information I need to have down yet. I was talked into joining the Get a Clue readathon by a good friend of mine. She's like the know-it-all of all readathons. It's so fantastic. If you need a readathon, she's got you. And this is a new one, so she wanted to support it and she mentioned it to me and I thought it sounded quite cool. It's based off the game Clue, so we're going to give that one a go in November. And then every year the Clear Your Shit readathon happens in November and December. It's essentially a way to use prompts to get through your physical TBR. And I have been in such an audiobook mood that my physical TBR just keeps growing. So I'm hopeful that I can at least tackle it in a way that it looks like I'm being productive with it. Um, I don't think I'm going to give up my audiobooks anytime soon. It means I can get things done while I'm also reading, which is a win for me. This page here is my TBR and other information page. I have Buddy Reads, my TBR game prompts, and also library hires. This page never really changes aside from how many prompts I do each month. This month I'm back to playing the full segment of the TBR jar game. I'm very excited for next year though, because my friend and I have this new idea of how we're going to play the game. It won't be a jar, so we're very excited for it. We do have to buy something to play it though, so you have to stay tuned for that. I'm not sure when we're going to go ahead and get that, but I'm very excited to give it a go, and it'll be something new. And I'm really like looking forward to something new. I'm a Gemini. I like change that way. I don't want things to be too stagnant. And so hopefully this new way of playing the prompt game will be a lot of fun. Now, with the reading log, I am still experimenting. I have changed this twice now. This will be my third time. The first time round was in September, and I made this grid layout. The boxes weren't wide enough for me, so I couldn't get my headers in. And then last month I made them too big. There was too much room to fill in, and I don't like how it's turned out at all. So I'm trying this size instead. I'm hoping that it will work out in my favor. It's not too big or small. It's the Goldilocks size, hopefully, for me to set this all up and not have any more problems. Now, this is where I'm going to talk about that pen again. And when I started setting up for the month on the first page, I didn't have too many issues with the ink. It was running quite freely, and I hadn't touched the pen until this point. I've been shaking it and using it the way that you're meant to with an acrylograph. I'm finding that when I went to set up this segment of the book, that the pen just didn't want to work anymore. The opacity was not there, and I was really struggling to get it to come out at points. You'll notice that I go over things a few times. I've made a mistake down the center there with the pen because it ran off the side. That wasn't the pen's fault, that was me. But especially on this page here, it almost acted like it was really tired, and I don't like that. I paid a lot for these pens and I think that they should work a lot better than they do. That might be just my experience. I'm not finding that they're worth the value at all to spend that much money on pens that don't have the reliability that you sort of crave from a pen. I'm not sure if this is just an isolated feeling or if I'm using them incorrectly, but I've followed what I need to do with shaking them up and fueling them kind of thing. And I'm still finding it really challenging to use them. Here I am shaking the living life out of this pen. And I still didn't get the opacity that I wanted from this. It doesn't look too bad on film, I must admit, and the whole reason I left all the footage of my head getting in the way of setting up the reading log is to show you that, well, two things. One, I complain a lot that I can't see the dots. You really can see how I'm not able to see them. I definitely need to get an optometrist appointment, but also it's just because the light's shining on them and I cannot see the dots whatsoever, so I have to angle this way and that to see them, but also so you could see that I was really struggling with the pen. Yeah, thoughts would be welcomed in the comments below if you've had experience with these particular pens, and if this is something that you've found as well, or it's down to user error and I'm doing it wrong. I'm not sure. Please do let me know because, um, like I said, spent a lot of money on these pens. I actually got them for Christmas from my mum, but like she spent the money and I don't want them to just sit in a container and not be used because they are pretty colours. Um, but they're just a real pain to get the right opacity on. Um, I didn't need any more boxes on this side, so I decided to just use up some of the pictures that I had left and make a what is it, decorative page, and used up the extra quote as well. And then I came back and decided to do squares for the place where I could put the number. And as you can see, I'm really struggling to get that opacity with the pen, really trying to go over it. I gave up in the end, regretted my choices of using it, but it was enough so the white pen showed up in the end to show where what book it is in the little box. I then go back through after this and fill it in with the little stats. I do really like the grid. I think it's a better format for me than the table. Like I said, I don't know what I'm going to do for 2024, which layout suits me better. Um, I guess we'll have to do a little bit more experimenting in 2024 to see if that is the way to go forward. Very first world problems about layouts, but if you're a journal user, you know that you want to have the right layout that's going to work for you. And also, if you're anything like me, you want to have the same layout month to month until you get absolutely tired of it by the time you get to September in the year. So, like I said, I filled in all the little stat bits for my reading log, and now I actually did an extra page for you all. When I was setting up this layout or this theme, I ended up missing a page. So you might have noticed that I've done a little bit of erasing on pages that didn't make sense. And that's because I completely skipped a page and it wasn't there. So I decided that since I had already worked on that page a little bit, I would add in those last elements so I didn't have to worry about them at the end of the month. We're into the final flip through, and if you sat this whole way through, thank you so much for spending time with me. Have you read this book? Do you enjoy it? I'd love to know either way in the comments below. And I'm also really glad that we made it to this point in the year, and I'm so happy with how this thing came together. I think I've said that like a million times, but I really am. Until we meet next time, I really hope that you're having a fun time reading, and I hope that I can have some new videos up very soon and on time for you all. I'm a little delayed with this one, I do apologise. But until then, thank you so much. Bye everyone.